What is up, guys? Welcome back to Switch 2 Next Gen. If you're tired of the same mainstream giants, you're in the right place. We're diving into 15 sleeper hits that completely redefine action combat. From precision-based parry systems to games that blend intense hack and slash with deep time-bending narratives, these hidden gems prove that the Switch is a powerhouse for true skill-based mastery. Let's jump in. We are kicking things off with a dark pixel art powerhouse that will absolutely shred your button mashing habits. Released in April 2022, Unsouled puts you in the shoes of a fallen prince who absorbs the souls of the dead to survive. This is not your typical casual hack and slash. Success here hinges entirely on the brutal active souls mechanic. Unlike standard passive buffs, these souls demand manual activation mid-combat to pull off devastating boss level abilities or execute a clutch escape. Chain these together and you get a complex combat flow that feels incredibly rewarding when you nail the timing, but utterly punishing if you slip up. Combined with the mysterious abyss system, you are forced to study enemy attack patterns and interact with the environment just to survive the grueling boss encounters. It is an absolute masterpiece of precision and execution that flew way too far under the radar. Taking our number 14 spot is a gorgeous title that landed on the Switch in June of 23. Eastern Exorcist immediately grabs you with its striking hand-drawn Chinese ink art style, but the real magic lies in its merciless, skill-based swordplay. On the Switch, it runs at a silky smooth 60 frames per second, which is absolutely vital because the combat relies on precise frame-by-frame animations. You cannot just button mash your way through these encounters. You must deflect, parry, and master a brilliant dispel mechanic. When you down a demon, you are forced to quickly exorcise them right in the heat of battle, or they will revive even stronger and completely wreck your run. Gamers love how theatrical and demanding the boss fights are, making every victory feel thoroughly earned. If you want a 2D action role-playing game that tests your reflexes and looks like a moving painting, this is one of the finest hidden gems on the system. Sliding into spot 13 is a game that completely punishes you for trying to play defensively. Astlibra Revision, which arrived on the Switch back in November 2023, throws out the standard safety net of dash-based invincibility frames. Instead of dodging away to safety, this side-scrolling hack and slash forces you to stay absolutely glued to your enemy's face. You have to constantly unleash aggressive melee strikes just to build up your magic points. Once your meter is full, you spend that energy on massive spells which actually grant you the crucial invincibility frames needed to survive incoming attacks. It is a brilliant high-stakes combat loop that rewards pure relentless offense. Better yet, the action runs at a buttery smooth 60 frames per second on the Switch, making every frantic multi-phase boss fight feel incredibly responsive as you customize your loadout and tear through screen-filling monsters. Slashing through mechanical monstrosities at lightning speed is where Ultra Age shines. Released in September 2021, this character action gem delivers an incredibly satisfying hack and slash loop that feels like a portable love letter to Devil May Cry. You play as Age, switching between futuristic blades on the fly to exploit enemy weaknesses and unleash devastating combos. What makes the combat truly sing is the wire mechanic. You can yank smaller foes directly into your blade or use quantum warp to instantly zip to massive bosses, keeping your momentum at an absolute peak. On the Nintendo Switch, Unreal Engine 4 targets a stable 30 frames per second. While the resolution takes a noticeable hit and busy fights can trigger minor stutters, it remains a remarkably fluid port. Just do yourself a huge favor and switch the audio to Japanese. Gamers widely agree the English voice acting is comically bad, but once you bypass that, the pure combat is absolute bliss. At number 11, we have a game that wears its gorgeous Vanillaware inspiration proudly on its sleeve. Sword of the Vagrant, which hit the Switch in late 2022, is a stunning 2D action role-playing game that plays just as beautifully as it looks. You control the sellsword Vivian, slicing through a brutal dark fantasy world with incredibly fluid, heavy-hitting hack and slash combat. But what really anchors this gameplay loop is the surprisingly deep character progression. The game features an expansive skill tree that feels heavily inspired by Final Fantasy X. By defeating monsters, you harvest mana to spend on this massive web, unlocking brand new combo chains, devastating charge attacks, and passive stat boosts that completely change how Vivian handles in a fight. It gives every single encounter a purpose, letting you tailor your build to survive punishing, screen-filling boss fights. If you want magnificent hand-drawn art backed by tight, customizable combat, this is a must-play. Entering the grim pixel art world of No Place for Bravery feels like stepping into a top-down tribute to Sekiro, starring an aging warrior named Thorn. Released in September 2022, this game demands absolute mastery over guard management and precise parries. The genius of the combat loop lies in its high-stakes stamina refill mechanic. Successfully executing a staggered enemy completely restores your stamina, forcing you to play aggressively rather than cowering behind a shield. Swapping between heavy hammers and crossbows keeps the bloody encounters incredibly satisfying. However, players at launch ran into a wall of technical frustration on the Nintendo Switch. Despite the stylized pixel art, the game suffered from frame pacing issues, jarring stuttering during intense combat, and occasional soft locks. Critics noted that these performance hiccups severely dragged down what should have been a razor-sharp combat engine. Landing a flawless high-speed aerial combo that sends a giant deity crashing to the earth is where Lost Epic truly shines. Debuting on April 19th, 2023, this gorgeous 2D side-scrolling action RPG tasks players with dismantling the oppressive pantheon of six. It masterfully blends Metroidvania exploration with a combat loop that feels incredibly fluid. You are constantly chaining light and heavy attacks into weapon-specific divine skills, creating massive, devastating juggles that feel exceptionally rewarding to pull off. This progression is driven by the materialize mechanic, which lets you utilize the anima and raw materials harvested from defeated foes to craft and evolve your arsenal. It gives every single encounter a purpose, feeding into a deep character building loop that demands smart stamina management and precise timing during intense screen-filling boss fights. It is a stylish god-slaying rush that deserves way more love on the Switch. Landing on the Switch in late 2023, Silent Hope takes the classic isometric dungeon crawler and injects it with a brilliant reason to actually use your entire roster. Instead of picking one favorite hero and ignoring the rest, this clever action RPG actively rewards you for passing the torch. Dropping into the shifting abyss to gather resources and fight monsters feels incredibly smooth, but the real magic happens when you swap between these 7 distinct classes. When you switch characters mid-run, you inherit a permanent buff from the hero you just benched. It is a fantastic strategic loop that makes building up a magic casting sage feel just as vital as mastering the heavy-hitting warrior. You plunge into the depths, extract materials, and head back to base camp to craft and cook, keeping the combat loop endlessly satisfying. It is a wonderfully streamlined, back-to-basics adventure that gives every single hero on your team a genuine purpose. Coming in at number 7 is Oninaki, a striking hack-and-slash adventure that arrived on the Nintendo Switch back in August 2019. The hook here is all about how you channel the dead to absolutely shred your enemies. Instead of locking you into a single job class, Oninaki introduces the brilliant daemon system. Think of these demons as lost souls that act as your living weapons. You can equip up to 4 of these spirits at the exact same time, and each one brings a completely distinct weapon, moveset, and dedicated skill tree to the battlefield. The real magic happens when you start hot swapping between them mid-combo. You might start a fight by sweeping the area with a massive scythe, instantly switch to a spear-wielding daemon to pierce a shield, and then finish the job with a rapid-fire ranged assault. It turns every encounter into a fast-paced puzzle where your weapon wheel is the solution. Sliding into our number 6 spot is a filthy, grotesque masterpiece of pixel art that arrived on the Switch in late 2020. Morbid, the 7 Acolytes is a self-described horror punk Souls-like that drenches your screen in Lovecraftian terror. What makes this isometric nightmare so satisfying is how deliberate every swing feels. You are managing health, stamina, and your very sanity while dodging grotesque monsters with customized melee and ranged weapons. Instead of traditional leveling, character progression relies on a unique blessing system. You hunt down and smash hidden statues across the world to unlock passive buffs. You can swap these perks on the fly, tailoring your build to counter whatever horror you are facing. It makes the brutal pattern memorizing encounters with the titular 7 Acolytes feel like strategic puzzles rather than cheap stat checks. Landing at number 5 is CrossCode, a brilliant gem that dropped on the Switch back in July of 2020. This top-down action RPG brilliantly captures the feeling of playing a futuristic MMORPG, serving up a combat loop that is incredibly fast and satisfyingly tactical. What makes it special is how it blends frantic melee and ranged combat with its elemental system. Swapping between fire, ice, lightning, and wave on the fly does not just exploit enemy weaknesses, it actively alters how you navigate the world. You will be using fire to turn water into mist to power windmills, or shooting wave projectiles right through solid walls to solve intricate puzzles mid-fight. Now, 6 years after its release, it is easy to forget that the launch was a bit rocky on Switch, with players reporting nasty menu lag and frame rate dips during hectic battles. Thankfully, updates have smoothed out those wrinkles, leaving us with an absolute masterpiece of an action RPG that belongs in your library. For our fourth spot, we have a game that asks a ridiculous question. What if you combined high-speed aerial juggles with incredibly meticulous agricultural science? That is Sakuna of Rice and Ruin, which launched in November 2020. You play as a spoiled harvest goddess who must cultivate a thriving rice crop to raise her stats, directly linking your farming success to your raw power in battle. When you step out of the paddy and into the side-scrolling levels, the combat is an absolute masterclass in kinetic movement. Your secret weapon is the Divine Raiment, a celestial scarf that acts as a grapple. You can zip behind monsters, pull them into your swings, and launch yourself into the air to chain together absurdly satisfying aerial combos. Best of all, the Switch version handles this beautifully, targeting a smooth 60 frames per second during the frantic combat and a stable 30 during the 3D farming segments. At number 3, we are diving into a vibrant world that feels like a massive love letter to 90s Secret of Mana. Released in North America in April 2023, Trinity Trigger delivers that beautiful classic action RPG nostalgia with a brilliant modern spin. You lead 3 heroes who partner up with elemental spirits called Triggers, which can shapeshift into 8 distinct weapon classes. Combat is all about tactical, mid-battle weapon swapping to exploit enemy weaknesses. Once you recruit your full party, you unlock the Trinity Impact, a devastating party-wide area of effect blast that absolutely melts bosses and clears screens of enemies in a deeply satisfying explosion of color. It is a brilliant gameplay loop, though players widely agree the game stumbles hard at the finish line. The final boss fight is notoriously tedious and poorly designed, which sadly leaves a bit of a sour taste on an otherwise incredible throwback adventure. Still, the journey there is pure cooperative joy. Scaling a massive, hostile tower while maintaining absolute momentum is where Weiss Origin absolutely shines, securing our number 2 spot. Landing on the Switch back in October 2020, this stellar prequel strips away the sprawling overworld of later entries to deliver a laser-focused arcade-style dungeon crawler. You choose between 3 distinct protagonists, completely reshaping your playstyle. Whether you are swinging a heavy axe at close range with Unica or blasting magic projectiles from afar with Hugo, the combat is blisteringly fast and fluid. The real genius here is how combat and movement blend together through skill-based navigation. Your elemental tools serve double duty. The wind ability you use to shred enemies is the exact same tool that lets you glide across massive gaps and dash through platforming hazards, keeping the gameplay loop incredibly hyperactive. It makes scaling Darm Tower and tackling its screen-filling bosses feel like a non-stop, high-speed dance of destruction. Taking the absolute number 1 spot on our list is Victor Vran Overkill Edition, an absolute masterclass in kinetic action. Hitting the Switch in August 28, 2018, this isometric powerhouse completely ditches rigid character classes. Instead, your playstyle is defined entirely by your active gear and destiny cards. The real magic lies in its brilliant jump mechanic, injecting verticality into the genre, and the ability to swap between 2 weapons on the fly. You can seamlessly shred a crowd with a scythe, then instantly switch to a shotgun to blast the survivors. Now, the Switch port isn't entirely flawless. Gamers have pointed out that the menus can feel a bit clunky to navigate, and when the screen gets flooded with enemies, you will experience some frame rate stuttering. But if you can overlook those minor performance hiccups, the sheer combat freedom and relentless pace make this the ultimate action role-playing experience on the system. And that's our list for 15 underrated Switch action RPGs with incredible combat. There are so many hidden gems on this console, and we hope you found your next obsession today. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more gaming deep dives. What did we miss? Let us know your own favorites in the comments below. Here are some more videos of ours you can watch. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.